All right, Ryan Barnes, Director of Purchasing at Baessler Homes. Ryan, thanks for being on.
Sure.
Yeah, Ryan, I love having people like you on the podcast specifically because we can visualize your journey a little bit. You got to Baessler almost a decade ago as a purchasing agent, working your way up to a purchasing manager. Now you're the director. Can you speak a little bit to that fluid and consistent growth? Like, what do you think separated you from the rest of the pack to climb this ladder?
Well, Baessler is very different today than it was when I first started. When I started, we were doing a lot of semi-custom homes, a lot of customization in the stock plans that we had, and ultimately I was the only purchasing agent when I first started. 60 days in, the purchasing manager left. There was a lot of turnover back then,
Sure.
and I walked into that role. My background is in commercial project management prior to that. So I walked into that role really not knowing what I was doing, to be honest with you. But somehow ended up staying there, started to build a team, brought over somebody I trusted from another relationship. And we started to build the purchasing team. And over the past 9 years, that's really changed from the semi-custom world to more of the production world. Learning this industry is more about relationship than anything else, and the
Totally.
more that we can focus and grow those relationships, the better it's going to be for both us as the builder and in purchasing, as it is with our trade suppliers and manufacturers.
So when you say relationships, you mean specifically with suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, or do you mean with your end users, the people who you're actually building homes for, or both, obviously?
So it's both, but in purchasing, we really more touch on the suppliers, distributors, manufacturers, our trade partners as well.
Of course. So over the course of your career, Ryan, working in this field, it sounds like you kind of ended up in procurement by accident in a way. What ways have you found to optimize the procurement process as a whole, especially through your tenure come up?
So again, it goes back to the relationships, really getting to know the people you're working with, developing, new and growing relationships, but also getting down into what's called a total cost of ownership, getting down into the nitty gritty, figuring out what the actual widget costs at the end of the day, all those extra costs that go into it when it goes through all the different channels, and partnering with people who are willing to work with you and collaborate with you to figure out how to make that process more efficient and cost less.
Total. And so, given that, kind of to your point, like partnering with the right people, how have you gotten better or improved in determining who the right people to work with are, who the wrong people to work with are, especially over 10 years in the industry, you've climbed the ladder. I mean, how have you really dialed that in terms of, okay, these are people we need to stay away from, whether it be on the purchasing side, the selling side, or what have you? What tips or tricks have you found to be most effective in terms of who are we doing business with to make sure everyone's successful with this project or deal or what have you?
I think the biggest thing I've found is those who are willing to collaborate and not just point the finger are the people you want to continue building those relationships with. So the collaboration, when people are bringing ideas and are willing to sit down with you in a partnership type relationship towards a common goal, those are the people you want to continue to build those relationships with.
Right. Because on top of that, I mean, Baessler Homes, you guys are probably sourcing tens of thousands of components and materials. A lot of materials go into these building of these homes and whatnot. I mean, everyone needs to be firing on all cylinders first and foremost, but also on the same page, I'd imagine.
Right.
Willing to collaborate, obviously, in order to make things work. I mean, building a home is no simple task, no?
It's not a simple task. I think there's about 60,000 parts that go into a home. And then, again, 50 to 60 different trade partners or subcontractors that work on that house. So yeah, it's a complex thing to coordinate. One of the other things in purchasing is the relationship we have with our own production team, our construction managers or superintendents out in the field. that's as important as our relationship with our trades. Because if we as a company are on the same team, rowing in the same direction, um, that makes it better for our trades, better for all the relationships when everybody's speaking the same language, going the same direction.
Of course. And like, what would you say the best traits are when you're dealing with like suppliers, distributors, manufacturers? I mean, is it something as simple as lead time, price, or something deeper like reliability, trustworthiness, communication, all of the above, perhaps? I mean, what really is the secret sauce to being successful in a high volume procurement position?
Right. Well, you get to the table with price. What sets the good ones apart are those intangibles that you talked about. It's the communication, the collaboration, um, overall attitude. When you can see their company culture, and it's not just one salesperson who is a rock star, and you can see the culture facilitates that kind of behavior. That's another good thing to look for.
Totally. And can you share a specific instance where you had to navigate a particularly difficult situation with, for lack of a better word, a poorly behaved supplier, distributor, partner, manufacturer, what have you?
Sure. Actually, I'll pick one here. There's been a number of them. Um, we had a trade that had been with us from um, they're a second generation owner, and they've been with Baessler Homes for most of the life of their company. Um, when I came in, they'd already been working with Baessler Homes for a couple of decades, so they already have a relationship with our CEO. They already
Yeah.
have they've been working. They knew how we used to do things, but as we start to change and get more efficient, get better, um, they were still doing things the old way, the old pricing structure, the old scheduling. Everything was just kind of not in line with where we were going. Um, Ultimately, we came down to it. Self, our head of production, our president of home building, went actually to their office, sat down, had a direct conversation, and said, "This is where you need to be." Um, just very, very candid conversation about what the relationship looks like, and you can't just go around us to the CEO. You work with us. This is if you want the relationship, we need to collaborate on this. Ultimately, it was rocky for some time, but looking back on it, it's been a couple of years since then. Gosh, probably almost 3 years since then, and they're still working with us in some capacity. But they also understand they don't get all the work, and it's made them better. They've gotten more efficient.
Sure. I mean, back to your point about communication, especially when we're dealing with 60,000 components for one project. I mean, there can't be any side nonsense, any, problems in the locker room, if you will, if we want to make this a successful endeavor, especially with repeat customers such as the one you're describing. I mean, it's just not going to work.
Right.
Yeah. So, with that being said, Ryan, in your view, what are the most significant trends currently shaping the procurement industry? Maybe think about what things looked like 9, 10 years ago when you got here, and now you're running the whole show. Like, what
Right.
trends are you seeing that's kind of shaping what we're doing today?
Well, I think one of the biggest things, when I started, there was a sort of a subtle push to get down to unit costing, get everything unit costed, but it was kind of in the background. We still did things on the quote 3 bids and a prayer, um, and I think what you're seeing in the industry today, especially in home building purchasing, um, there's a gentleman by the name of Ken Pinto. He's written the book "How Much Is the Milk," and he really details a lot of the relational aspects of it, but also getting down into the strategic negotiation and making things a win-win with our partners. But that does mean we've got to know the cost of every part and piece, and we got to know what it is and that whole supply chain structure behind it. So that's ultimately it's growing our knowledge, growing our strategic negotiation,
Right.
And all that's done through win-win type of relationships.
So we keep coming back to this aspect of communication. So I was going to ask you another question about, say, like what key elements do you believe are crucial for effective procurement management, or what strategies do you find most effective for effective procurement management? It seems like the team element, that communication factor, is above the rest in terms of being successful and getting some of this stuff done. You being in the industry, me just being a bystander, we've both heard horror stories of houses that were supposed to take 18 to 24 months to build and ended up taking years and years because of issues here and there, right? And that has to do with the camaraderie of all the pieces coming together and everyone doing their job, I'd imagine, correct? Is that kind of the main reason why we get disastrous projects, because poor management, poor communication?
I think poor management, poor communication definitely are a part of that, but I think it's about poor relationship.
Yeah.
Because anybody who's a good manager, so to speak, they can get things done. But if you are poor at building relationships, you're gonna have a lot harder time getting people there to show up on time and do what needs to be done.
Absolutely. And for you, someone who's climbed the ladder, like I mentioned, you started as an agent, moved up to manager, now director. At the end of the day, like, what does a successful day for you look like? What's most rewarding or most important about what you're able to do with your day to day?
You know, to be honest with you, I focus on the team, and the team focuses on the job. And so that's what's most rewarding for me, is when the team is working through a difficult situation and they get a victory. They get a win for that day, or the end of a certain season of time, there's a breakthrough. Um, that's the most rewarding thing for me, honestly. It's just seeing the team get wins.
It's a great point too, because from the other side of the house, I'm sure your team is thrilled to work for a manager such as yourself who has values and beliefs such as that. I was had another woman on my podcast earlier, and she was talking about the importance of like that work culture, and managers with those kinds of beliefs that you just outlined, I think are really important for teams who are more successful, the ones who aren't micromanagers, have the
Yep.
teams that take it upon themselves to be really great employees because they don't want to let you down, because there's that mutual respect and kind of unspoken agreement between the team and the manager. So I think that's a great point, Ryan. And last question for you. With the introduction of AI and constant technological advancements, especially today, how has your job become easier or benefited from all this technology?
To be honest, we're just scratching the surface. I am not a techie guy, but I see there could be massive benefits to AI and the rapid advancement of technology. That's why, that's honestly why I agreed to take this call, because I want to learn more and educate myself, because we're going to get left behind if we don't.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and the direction and the trajectory and the speed of which AI is coming into every industry
Yeah.
is rapid. And you're exactly right. The acknowledgement is the first part of it, because those who are, they are resistant to, integrating AI into their company or technology in their company. Oh, I've been running my company like this for 50 years. I don't need technology, are unfortunately those who get left behind. So it's a great point, and it's thinking ahead. This is the direction of the industry. This is the direction of the world. We better hop on the train so we don't get left at the station.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, I really appreciate the time. Really, really insightful conversation. And good luck to you. Appreciate you sharing some of your insights and a little bit about your career journey here with us.
Thank you, Mike.